What's up guys, Justin here with the SketchUpEssentials.com. So in this video, I'm going to teach you everything you need to know about getting started with the extension Profile Builder. Let's go ahead and just jump into it. Okay, so Profile Builder is a tool from Mindsight Studios designed to help you create smart profiles and assemblies inside of SketchUp. So it's a really powerful tool for really any shape that you extrude in a direction, but then it also has this really awesome functionality for creating these smart things in SketchUp. Note that it is currently on sale for their Black Friday sale. I think through the end of the week. It might just be through the middle of the week. You can check it out at the SketchUpEssentials.com/profile builder. Note that link is an affiliate link, so I do receive a commission if you purchase through that link. Oh, and one thing to note about Profile Builder is you can get a 30-day trial. You can find that on that page. Just scroll down to the 30-day trial right here if you do want to try it out, or if you do just want to get it at that reduced rate, just click on Add to Cart and then use the code BlackCyber25 in order to get a discount on that license. All right, and so basically, the way the Profile Builder works is functionally you're really going to focus on these two options on the left-hand side. Everything else over here is really designed to work with these first two functions. And so Profile Builder creates two different things. It creates profiles and it creates assemblies. And so we're going to focus on profiles first. So what a profile is if we click on this little button right here, it's going to pop up this profile dialog. And basically a profile is really any shape that you extrude along a path. Right. So this has a number of different profiles built in that we can kind of check out. But let's say we wanted to add this gutter right here. So basically what this is this is a profile that when you click and you click in your model, it's going to add that profile inside of the model. And it's really good about doing things like turning the corner with objects right here. But you can see how you can use this in order to add profiles really quickly to your model. And so really there's two different ways that you're going to add these to your model. So first off is the way I just showed you, which is using build mode, but you can also pick a profile and you can pick a path using the second option right here. So say that we select this path right here. I'm going to select it. And let's say we wanted to add some crown molding. I'm just going to go into my profile browser, which is a place where you can save profiles. And we're going to go find a profile. So we'll pick this crown molding 4. Right here. Well, with a path selected, if you use this option right here, it's going to build along the path, kind of like you would with a follow me tool. So it's going to extrude this along the path. And so notice how right now this has placed that based on this insertion point on the upper left-hand corner. And so in this case, I could go ahead and I could move this down to align it with the wall right here. But this is a really easy way to add profiles. Now, the thing that's cool about this though, is it's also non-destructive, right? So what that means is let's say that I came in here and I wanted to add a little bump out on the wall right here. Well, there's actually an option in here. It is edit the path of the active profile member. If you double click into this profile and you click on the edit the path button, not this one, but this one right here. If we draw a line on this edge and we adjust it, we're going to erase out these edges right here and click out of here. Notice how this actually changed the path of the profile that's in here. So this does a really good job of being a non-destructive profile editor. And so what's cool about this is let's say that I had a different profile. So I'm just going to create one of these so it's easy to access inside of my model. But say that I dumped another profile in here like this. And so what I want to do is I want to select this other profile right here. And then for this one, and so if I come in here and I edit the attributes with this selected, so if I click on apply right here, I can use this in order to non-destructively swap out different profiles that are inside of my model. And so the other cool thing about this is you can also create your own custom profiles. So for example, say that I wanted to create a profile based on this piece of base right here. What I could do is I could draw along this piece of base. And I'm just going to go simple on the backside here. But what you can do is you can select this profile, and then with the profile dialog active, you can click on new and we can name this. We'll just call this base profile right here. But notice how it picks up the shape that we have in here, and it will actually create that as a profile in Profile Builder. Like this. So now let's say that I drop this in here, and we'll fix this insertion point in a second, but notice how it's created this shape as a profile in Profile Builder. And so you can pick the point that this inserts on based on this drop down right here. So in this case, we want the bottom left right, on this corner. Well, now when I add this object in here, notice how it's going to insert based on the corner point right here. So I can use this in order to create this piece of base that runs along this path like this. And one of the cool things about the way this drops these in here is if you look at the corner, it's going to do a nice job of giving you kind of a smooth corner around the outside, so it does a good job with the junctions. Now there's other options in here for the way that these junctions work, right? So if you wanted these to have a different junction, like maybe a butt joint or something like that, you can adjust that. And then we're just going to adjust the junctions and nothing else. We're going to click on apply right here, but notice what it can do if you want it to is create this kind of like butt joint in here as well. And so the other cool thing about this is there's also an option in here to adjust the profile in place. So what that means is if I double click on this profile right here and then click on the option to edit the profile of the active member, it's going to let you use the drawing tools in SketchUp in order to adjust this profile. So let's say, for example, that we didn't want this edge right here. And let's say that we wanted to create a different curve over here. So let's say we wanted this to just continue instead of continuing a curve like so. Well, when I click out of here, notice what this is going to do is it's going to adjust that profile. And in this case, it's going to ask if we want to update this for all members in the model or not. In this case, I'm going to say no. But notice how now this has that different profile that we created in here. So we can use this in order to edit profiles in place. So it's very non-destructive from that standpoint. And so the other thing that you can add with Profile Builder is assemblies. And so assemblies are combinations of profiles and also other repeating objects. So if you click on this option right here for assembly dialog, what this is going to do is it comes with a number of example assemblies that we can take a look at, but this is going to give you access to all of those different assemblies. So in this case, let's say that we wanted to use maybe like this railing right here. Well, notice what this is going to do is this is going to do a really good job of adding a smart assembly in here that adds all of the verticals, it adds the screens, it adds all of those different parts and pieces. And this also has the ability to create along a path. So notice how right here I can create this along a path as well as along curves. So if we use this along a curve, notice how it's going to create a curved object right here as well. So this is really powerful because it can automate creation of a lot of different kinds of objects that are kind of repeating inside of SketchUp. And so one thing to note about this is basically what a profile, or basically what an assembly is it's a collection of profile members, components, and sometimes spans, which we'll talk about in a second. But basically, if you think about an object like a railing, what it is it's a number of repeating vertical components. So they happen over and over again at a set spacing. And then you've also got profiles, which are things that are extruded along a path, right? So in this case, let's say that we wanted to create a new railing. What I've done is I've created a component for the posts and then components for these pieces right here. And then I've also got my top rail and then my support bars in the middle. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a really simple assembly. So we're going to start by clicking on the plus button right here. Well, the first thing we want to add is our component. Our component is going to be this repeating vertical support. So I'm going to add a component. We'll click in here and notice how you can come in here. You can pick a component from your model. And we've got a bunch of different options in here, like things like spacing. So for example, say that I wanted these to be every 4 feet. Right here, I can adjust this, and this assembly is going to repeat these every 4 feet. And what I like to do inside of my models when I'm creating profiles is I like to go ahead and drop one in here so that I can see what it's doing when I add the different parts and pieces. You do get a preview in here, but this I think shows it a little bit better. So now we've got our component. We need to add a profile member. That's going to be the thing that gets extruded along a path. So we're going to add this, and I've gone ahead and I've added these profiles in here. So I just basically created two-dimensional profiles using the profile function, and then I just dropped them in here because what this does is this allows me to pick from model and select it. And so notice how this is going to show up inside of the model. And one of the things that I will do is I will click on this model right here, and I'll click on this option for apply assembly attributes. Notice what that does is that adds this piece in here like this. Now we have options in here to adjust where this gets placed, right? So in this case, for example, I actually want this to be above ground. So we adjust the the up-down offset of this profile member. So in this case, I'm going to say 12 inches right here, and then we'll apply this. And one thing that is really helpful is if you select an assembly and then double click on this option right here, it's going to put you in auto apply assembly attribute mode. So if you double click now, any changes you make, like let's say I brought this down to maybe 8 inches, are just going to apply automatically. And so in this case, we also need this to move over. And so we need it to move over so that it's aligned with the middle point right here. It looks like that needs to be moved to the right 2 inches. So we're just going to set a left-right offset of 2 inches. Or in this case, it's actually going to be -2 inches right here. Now, notice how this is starting at the very start of the assembly. That's actually not what we want. We need a little bit of a setback. So the setback is just going to be where this actually starts. We don't want this profile to start until 3 inches from the end. So we're just going to set a start setback of 3 inches right here. And for whatever reason, that auto apply toggled off. So I'm just going to double click in here in order to fix that. On the end, we want to set a negative setback. So this is going to be -1 inches. And so what that's going to do is that's going to extend this out right here. So now we've got this horizontal piece right here. Well, now I want to duplicate it because I want a second one, maybe like 32 inches above ground. So we're just going to click on the button for copy profile member right here. And we're going to set a relative offset of, we'll say 24 inches right here. So that just took it from this point to this point right here, and now it's 24 inches. Now we're going to do the same thing with our top plate right here. So we're going to pick from our model, we're going to place this, and we're going to do the same thing. So in this case, I need this to go up 3 foot and 5/8 of an inch. So we're just going to do 3 foot, 5/8 of an inch right here, and that's going to be good. Now, this needs to go over by 2 inches, or probably -2 inches. And then we need that same, well, we need a slightly different setback, because in this case, this setback is probably fine. It's starting at the end right here. But over here, we need an end setback to get us all the way over the end, right? So if we look at this right here, this just needs an additional end setback of -3 inches, like this. Well, now we're good to go. Right, so now we've got this assembly in here where we can use this the same way that we have before, like this, right? It does a really good job of turning the corners. So we've got this simple railing in here. Now, a couple things about this. First off, you can save assemblies that you create using the save function. So say I wanted to call this a railing. We're just going to call this whatever, custom railing. If you click on the save button, you can pick a folder, and we'll just call this custom railing. But now if you want to select that later, you can click on this button right here and you can go find that folder. So in this case, we're actually already in that folder, but you can create your own custom one on a drive. And for this one, notice how we can pick our custom railing in here like this. And so that's ready to go. You can also make adjustments to this. So for example, say that you wanted this to have more vertical supports, you could adjust the spacing on this to something like 2 feet. And then once we do that, we can apply that assembly attribute right here. And this is now going to have a spacing of 2 feet. Now, one thing I'm not going to get way far into, you can set what is added on the junctions. So like, for example, sometimes you have these in here and you don't want to create, for whatever reason, supports on the corners. You can adjust this so that your corners don't really show up in here. Now, in this case, you would want those on the corners, but you can adjust the way that the junctions are set up in here. And you can also set the rotation of your objects in here. Like for example, and this wouldn't really make sense here, but we could do a random rotation in here, and that's going to randomly rotate those objects. Now in this case, that doesn't make sense, but you can use this in order to set like a collection of trees or something, and then set a random rotation associated with those trees. Now, another thing I want to hit on real quick is spans. So I don't want to get like way in depth on spans right now, but notice how at the moment what's happening with this object is it's just extruding this all the way through, right? Like these bars do not stop at the supports. Well, if you want to do something that actually stops at the supports, what you can do is select the option for span. And in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to add a span, and we're going to use a profile member for that. So I'm actually going to get rid of these profile members because at the moment they're not doing what we want them to do, right? So we're going to get rid of those profile members, and instead, I don't want this to be random. I want this to be back at 4 feet right here, but we're going to add our profile members down here as spans instead. So we're going to go pick this object right here, and we're going to set this up the same way we did before. So we'll set our up-down offset of 8 inches. This needs a left-right offset of -2 inches. And notice what this is doing is this is trying to split this up based on where these objects are. Well, in this case, we want to reset our setback of 3 inches right here. And notice how that is basically setting this up where we have a new version of these at every vertical support. So in this case, we would also need an end setback of 1 inch right here. But notice how if you use spans, it uses the vertical supports in order to cut this off. So we would duplicate this again right here, up 24 inches. But notice how this gives us a much cleaner assembly. And then within spans, you can also create verticals. So say that you wanted a little vertical piece in here. So we're just going to create one. We'll say this is going to be 0.75, comma 0.75 right here. And I'm just going to push pull this up, and we're going to make it a component. And we'll call this vertical support. And by the way, one thing that is helpful when you're doing this is setting your component axes to the middle of the base of the object, because it uses the component axes to set where your object is. So instead of doing all that like offset stuff that we've been doing, use your object axis as the insertion point for this object. And so now what I want to do is I want to add these vertical supports in here between our larger supports, or our vertical pickets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this object, and we're going to do a sub-assembly. And so for the sub-assembly, what we need to do is we need to create an assembly really quick first. So we're just going to leave this one as is, and we're going to create a new assembly. We'll go ahead and we'll save our custom railing assembly. But now I'm going to create a new assembly, which is just the repeating component. So we're just going to pick this object right here, and I want this to be every 3 inches, maybe, like this. And we can go ahead and drop one in our model so it's easily selectable right here. But now, inside of this object, which I'm going to sample, we're going to go with no on saving our current assembly. We're going to add the verticals as a sub-assembly. So we're just going to pick this right here, and it's going to drop this into our model like so. And so now we need to place it. So in this case, we want this to be up 8 3/8 of an inch. We need it to go over 2 inches or -2 inches right here. And so we can go ahead and set our setback to maybe 6 inches right here. And so now notice what this is doing is this is adding these like so. Well, I want to make sure that these have the same spacing. And so we'll bump our end setback by maybe 1 inch right here. But notice how when we use the spans, what this is going to do is this is going to create these sub-assemblies that get cut off by the profiles that are in here. Well, now we've got this assembly inside of our model that'll actually generate along a path like this. Now that gets a little funky with corners, and I can link to a video down below that shows you how to work with the corners because this video is getting a little long. The last thing I wanted to hit on, and there's a couple other options in here we're not going to worry too much about, but I wanted to hit on the option for creating holes in objects, because if you create something like this wall right here and you try to cut a door opening, you're going to have to go through like all these different layers of groups, right? Because this assembly is made up of multiple different profiles that end up getting grouped. Well, there's a hole tool built into Profile Builder as well, designed to help you create those holes. So in this case, let's say we wanted a 3 foot by 7 foot opening right here, we can set the spacing, and then we can just click, and this is going to allow us to set the opening. So in this case, we're going to go to like bottom middle right here and click on this, and notice how the hole tool is going to cut across multiple different objects. And so you could also use this for things like windows. So say you've got like a 4-foot by 4-foot window opening, you can use this in order to cut the hole in the wall right here. The cool thing about this is also set up where you can move the hole in the wall. So you can use this in order to cut holes in your profile builder assemblies, which can be a huge, huge time saver. Oh, and then one other thing that I think you're really going to like with Profile Builder is you can also split your assemblies. So say I've got this railing in here, for example, there's a function in here for split. So if I use this option right here for split, what you can do is you can click on a profile member and you can tap the control key in order to put it in split mode. So what that means is that I can set this up where it adds a split to this object right here, and then we'll do the same thing, right? But in this case, we can use it in trim mode. So I'm just going to mouse over this edge, and notice I can trim this back right here, and it's going to adjust this so that you get a gap in here. So you can split those assemblies right here. And I know I keep dragging this out, but there's just a ton of really great features in here. The other feature that I really like in here is the Smart Path Select tool. So let's say that I had something like a sandbox right here. It's got kind of a crazy grid with a hole in it. So if I go to top-down view right here, delete out some of the edges, whoops, like this, like going in and tracing around those can be really frustrating, right? You have to go edge, 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 edge. There's a function in here called the Smart Path Selection tool. This allows you to pick up an edge and then move your mouse, and it'll do this along a path. And I'm going to go to a top-down view so you can actually see this right here. But notice what it'll do is it'll allow you to quickly set a path between one point and another point just by clicking. So you can use it in order to select edges really quick. It's designed so that you can quickly add profiles, but I use this tool almost as much as I use the actual profile builder functions, just for doing quick selections of complex paths inside of SketchUp. All right, so that is a fast overview of Profile Builder. Leave a comment below. Let me know if you're using this tool. I just love having that conversation with you guys. Remember, that is on sale this week, so make sure you check that out at TheSketchUpEssentials.com/Profile Builder. But as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks, guys.